I'm Mr. Boss. So I'm going to take you on a little journey with geometry and see what geometry is. What is it? And why do we use it? And why is it one of those classes in math that I would highly encourage you study a little bit more into it because it actually makes sense in a spatial setting. Um, and geometry has a lot of interesting aspects to it. So let's dive in. So first of all, here's what I want to kind of go through first. What is geo and what is metry? So geo means the study of the earth. So let's just say the earth, the study of the earth. And what metry is, it's the metric or measurement of the earth. So you can think of measurement. So you can think of like earth measure. And so geometry is the study of the earth and its spatial awareness. So what one of the biggest special things about geometry is that it hits a lot on actually logic. And I always tell people and I tell my students that logic is something that you cannot really define. What I mean by that is that some people can say, well, logic just means that you have valid reasons, or it's the way you're thinking of a situation, or trying to come up to a solution to a problem. Okay, yeah, I understand that, but logic you can't really I can't define it myself. Um, but logic, some people say, well, it has to do with common sense. It has to do with valued, valid um, reasons. Um, some people might say, well, it's a way to get the truth. To get the truth. Um, I would think it's an order. I think it's an order. Or you can think of it's an organization of something, an organization. You can also say it's a maybe a system, and it has to have some validity. But logic, I mean, you can go through this and you can put this into a sentence. But what I'm trying to understand is that common sense is a big one. When people say common sense, it's basically based on information that you gathered through experiences, the knowledge that you have gained, and it's pretty much in our society. Sometimes if you go to a different yeah, I guess a different part of the world, they might have different common sense than you do, and we all do. So it's kind of it's based off experience. I really think, um, and common sense is not common for everybody. Is it common for somebody to always use your blinker while you're turning a turn? Well, yeah, that's what the rules of the road say to do. But does everybody do by it? No. So this is kind of weird that I don't understand. But logic is something that I cannot define so much. And so we have to deal with a lot of logic in geometry. And why is that? Is that we have a lot of proofs in geometry. And one of the proofs is that, well, what about an odd number? An odd number, compared to an even number, compared to an even number. And you can say, well, an odd number is something that goes 1, 3, 5, 7, yeah. But really, what are you doing to get to the next number? And an even number is 2, 4, 6, 8. I mean, what's the process of getting to the next number? And you have to kind of see a pattern and maybe come up with a logical explanation of why that's happening. So you have to have what we call statements about what you're trying to prove. And you have to come up with reasons why those happen. And those reasons are based off on evidence that you gather. You know, evidence that you gather that can be true. When a perfect example of this by Sherlock Holmes, you know, Homer did this is that he says that he went off of deductive reasoning. He wanted valid reasons to kind of have his evidence sounded. So he wants logic has sound, sound evidence. You can also think of hard evidence, means that you can see it, it's there. Hey, we can see the order. So you really want to have reasons or evidence to support your foundations or what part you're going from. So geometry is a good interesting course to see this, to understand, and it differs from a lot of algebra and advanced mathematics is because geometry, it takes you onto this logical perspective. One and another thing that my students have I don't have a hard time with, but what we're trying to do is I always say, well, why does A equal A? Well, what if A was an odd number, and then how does one odd equal another odd? Or how does an odd equal the same odd? And so you go through these proofs, but it's kind of interesting to see the geometry in this way. So bottom line is that geometry opens your mind up to a lot of spatial awareness, logical, um, log, being very um, systematic in your thinking of all the reasons and why, and the evidence supporting those reasons of why you're making that decision, of why you're making that jump or that to that conclusions. And so it has to have a lot to deal with deductive reasoning. What that means is that you can have solid evidence or valid evidence statements, and you should have and you will have, I should say, a solid conclusion, rather than inductive reasoning where you don't have very solid or valid statements. So your conclusion might or be possibly be true, but not guaranteed. So I think geometry is just, besides the proving part and the doing circles and triangles and the squares and proving that things are the same. It's not just that. I think it has to deal with mostly a lot of your logic. It's where your logic kind of arrives. And that's why I kind of think that throughout school is that you should have more logic. And so geometry is kind of that place where you can take that logic. So I hope this helps a little bit. I know that could be kind of misleading at certain points, but just get the idea that it's more about opening your mind to the foundations of using a little bit of common sense slash experience and using some valid reasons to back up your claims and having some truth if you're truth seeking. So I hope this helps a little bit, and I will see you again.